Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Friday to you today. Happy New Year as well. I hope your 2026 is off to a really good start. It's wonderful to be back with you guys and with the lovely folks at Arden to do some more scrapbooking. And again, we're going into our Christmas photos for this live today. We'll be talking about how to put some of those to use on your Christmas scrapbook pages. My name is Sarah, and I've got some really fun techniques to share with you today. We're going to be working with some beautiful pattern papers and cardstock, and I just can't wait to share this with you today. So, as you're jumping in, please give a shout. Hi, Barry. Happy New Year to you, too. Give a shout, post a comment in the comment section. We do read these, and we've got the lovely Fiona who's backstage, and she'll be popping in information about the product that I'm going to be using today. And then she will hopefully also help me catch any questions that come around as we are scrapbooking together. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be working with some Christmas photos again today. If you've just got some of your photos from either from last month, or maybe you're looking back at Christmases past and wanting to put those into either Christmas dedicated albums. Maybe you have a mini album or a bigger album that is only Christmas pages, or maybe you integrate them into your family scrapbook. Either way, we've got some fun ways to put those to use. So, I'm going to share with you the page. I'll hold it up quickly. This is a little bit awkward, and I know we've got some reflection from the lights in there. So I just wanted to show you quickly what we will be working with today. So a couple of photos. I've got some journaling. I've got some rub-on embellishments in here too, as well as some nice large words as a split page title. So we'll be talking about how to do the layout. Of course, I'll step us through that. We'll talk about rub-ons. We'll talk about layering rub-ons. Also, I've got some inking that I want to share with you. And of course, some journaling in there as well. So what I'm going to do is tilt down our camera. I'll change the camera angle here so that you can see my page and my work surface. A little bit messy today. Well, a little bit messy as always, I guess I should say. It's a work in progress, my crafting table. So there's always something that's being put together on here. So I've got all of my stuff sort of surrounding here. But let's step through the page. Let me scoot these things out of the way just quickly. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going on here. So as I was talking about Christmas traditions, now, if you've got kids, you probably got lots of traditions that you're passing on to future generations, either your kids, nieces and nephews, grandchildren. You may also have traditions that are sort of not kid related, and that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I have a tradition with a group of friends here in Hamburg, and every winter we get together for our holiday dinner. And this is our tradition from this year. So we do an ornament exchange. I have a photo of the ornament here. I've got a photo of my table of friends. There are 200 ladies in this group, so we really filled out that restaurant. So I've got one really good photo in here. For my double page spread, I'd probably include some other photos and some more journaling. But I've got some journaling in here, have a really fun die cut element, and then, of course, my rub-ons with some ephemera in here too. So what I also want to talk about is this beautiful pattern paper in the background here. So I want to share this with you. I'm going to show you the papers that I'm working with. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you. I was hoping that you would come. You said you would. So I'm looking forward to working with you today. And this is the collection that I'm going to be sharing with you. So this is the Season of Joy, the 12 by 12 collection. There's also a smaller 8 by 8 collection, but I'm going full size today. Now you'll notice here on the front cover, all of the swatches of cardstock patterns that are included in here. So this gives you a really good overview of the style of papers that we have in here. They are absolutely stunning. So this is a Katie collection. She is probably one of my favorite designers. I absolutely love these pattern papers. Of course, they are double-sided, so you've got some options to go there. You've got 2 sheets of each. And one thing I really wanted to share with you too is you've got some sheets in here that will have cutout elements, and these work beautifully as card focals if you do card making or you make tags. They also work really nicely on your scrapbook pages. And then the other side of this is a really nice basic design. Hi, Amber. Hi, Avril. Nice to see you guys here. And then another sheet that I want to be sure to show you. Let's get through here. They're so pretty. This is one. This is one. I did punch some pieces out. There are die cut pieces in here, so some nice long tags, and then also these elements here too, which can be used in lots of different ways on your scrapbook pages. So just to let you know, in this collection, you've got really beautiful all over designs, as well as some with some what I would call embellishments included in here too. The other thing I want to point out about this collection is that it's beautiful, it's really stylish, the designs are gorgeous, the colors are gorgeous. What I really appreciate though is that this can be used for photos that you have taken recently, as well as photos that would be from perhaps 20 years ago. So you don't have such a style that's tied into certain design style. I don't know if that makes any sense. Does that make sense to you guys? I think they're classic. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying it very eloquently, though. What I mean to say is that you can use these for your Christmas photos from lots of different eras. All right, let's take a look at this sheet right in here because this is the page that I'm using for my background. I'll try and be more eloquent, you guys. Oh, have I had my coffee today? Alrighty, so this is the page that I'm using as my background, and I've got this layered up onto some cardstock, so I've trimmed this down a little bit. But when I was flipping through this collection, this sheet really caught my eye. I love this design. You've got this beautiful wreath effect. You've got this kind of, I guess it would be like the cross section of a pomegranate, perhaps. Beautiful symmetrical design in here. You've got some faux texture in the background. The colors are beautiful. And when I first looked at this, I thought, okay, how could I possibly use this? And I think the first sort of inclination would be to put something right in the middle. So if you take a photo and you've got something right in the middle, and there you go, you're done. And then I thought, okay, that's a great idea, but you could also utilize this circular portion in here and use it as kind of a frame rather than a frame that you can incorporate other elements into rather than just something in the center. So that's what I'm doing here. And you'll see I've got just portions of that beautiful foliage kind of peeking out from behind my 2 photos, the journaling, and then the embellishments in here too. So another way of looking at this. Now you'll probably also notice that I've got some cardstock underneath here. And so what I've done first of all is I trimmed down my 12 by 12 paper to 11.5 inches square. Now, when you've got a focal element or you've got a very specific element on your page, if you're trimming this down, of course, you want to make sure that you're trimming off a section from all 4 sides so that you can maintain that image in the center. And from here, I decided to mat it onto some green cardstock. So you guys know I love this Arden cardstock. It's beautiful. Maybe if I hold this up a little bit more, you can see that there's a texture to it. And if you touch it, you'll of course feel that beautiful, beautiful texture on there. The other side is smooth. So you've got some options again for this. And so what I decided to do is simply place this right in the center. And I like how this creates another frame around our frame. But before I glue that down, I want to show you the cardstock pack that I'm working with. So this is the greens. You've got the jade, you've got Kelly green, hunter's green, and then also moss. And I'm using the moss cardstock, so the darkest of those. But of course, as I was thinking there, what about some of the other cardstock colors? So the other one is that hunter's green. which is not too terribly different from the moss, but you can see that there is a difference in there. So this could also go. I think this looks beautiful as well. It's going to pick up some of the brighter colors and some of that foliage. So, you've got some nice choices in here. Now, what else? You could also go into the reds. And the red that I want to share with you is from this collection, and these are all 12 by 12 as well. So this has two really nice reds that could go beautifully. There's the cherry red and then also the dawn. And from here, let me show you these. This is the cherry red, which immediately pops out some of those red berries in there, kind of brightens it all. And then there's the color called dawn, which is a little bit darker of a red. And again, that's going to bring out the berries and the red tones in here and contrast nicely with the white in the center. And of course, you could do multiple layers. You could do a red and a green. Yeah, Amber, the problem you have when not wanting to cover up the gorgeous paper. I agree. That's a trick. That's why there's two sheets in there. So you've got two options, I guess. It is a hard one to do. Yeah, if you're covering up the beautiful design, but also just think about how you can incorporate this in with the rest of the elements that you've got on your page. So from here, what I'm going to do before I glue this down, I'm going to add a little bit of ink around the outside edges. And when I'm doing this, I'm just creating a little bit of a shaded effect around here. So you can see where you got a little bit of an aged effect around the outside edges. And that kind of softens things down. I think it also ties in nicely with some of the colors here in our foliage. And to do this, I'm working onto my craft mat. My craft mat, which I have masking taped onto another cutting board so I can move this around in my work area. And I'm going to use the mustard ink. This is a Hunky Dory ink pad, and it's a dye-based ink pad. This being dye-based is the most important part because this will blend really nicely onto our cardstock. So I'm just going to place the edge of my pattern paper up along on the surface of my my craft mat, and I've got a blending brush here. Now the ink pad itself is raised up off of the base. And so what I'll do is just pick up some of that color on here. And when I'm blending around the outside edges, I'm not going to start with my brush on the paper. I'm going to sort of sweep it in from the craft mat. And that gives me a little bit more control when I'm adding this ink in here so I don't end up with too much ink. Because you can always add more ink, but it's very difficult to remove it from your cardstock or paper. So as I'm doing this, I think you can see the difference between our inked and our uninked portion here. And you can add as much or as little as you want, just coming around the outside edge. You can also see where it is on my craft mat here. No worries about that. That'll clean up really easily. And I like doing this because it's coordinating with the colors in our patterned paper. And it's also giving another nice layer of depth and dimension on our color, the colors in our background paper. So I'm just going to keep going around here. It's a quick and easy technique to do as well. And I've got some more in the corners and along the bottom edge here. Okay. And the mustard is a nice, kind of a neutral color. Any of your browns, your light browns will do nicely for this trick. But a dye-based ink pad is definitely the one that you want rather than a pigment ink or a solvent-based ink pad. So that's what I've got here. Now, what to do with this messy background? Well, you can take a tissue or a baby wipe, a damp cloth, and then just clean this up. And we're set to go. And because it's a dye-based ink pad, it will dry very quickly. So then I'm ready to move on to the next portion of my layout. So from here, I'm going to glue this right in the center. And when I'm working with this, for this demo, I'm just going to use a glue stick. You may use whatever adhesive you have on hand. If you like the double-sided tape or a tape runner, whichever one will work for you. And then just place this right here in the middle. So I've got this gorgeous cardstock coordinating with this beautiful pattern paper, and I'm ready to add in my photos and my embellishments. So let's talk a little bit about photos. Usually when you are celebrating, you end up with some photos. Sometimes the quality is going to be okay or not that great. I was taking these photos in a restaurant that the lighting wasn't that great. They turned out okay. I did a little bit of tweaking before I printed them. But the most important thing, I think, when you are working with photos is, and scrapbooking, is to remember sometimes the photos are not going to be the best quality. They don't have to be Instagram quality to be included on a scrapbook page. And especially when we're looking at some older photos or kind of one-of-a-kind photos, I think it's more important to have the photos and the memories represented than to make sure that they are the most incredible photos that have ever been taken. As you can see, we have a messy table. We've got we did our ornament exchange. We've got gift wrap paper all over the place. We've got glasses and candles and who knows what. The lighting is not terrific, but it's a wonderful group of friends. So I want to make sure to include them on my page. When I printed these out, I did print them out in a square format, and I really like this one. I like it also because I've got some square dies, and this just makes die cutting and matting and layering my photos really easy. So I've got some nested square dies. If you're printing out your photos in a kind of standard 4x6, you may have some rectangle shaped dies. This can also work nicely. And then you can crop out any of the sort of messier areas here. So what I've done is die cut my two photos. So I've got my photo of my group of friends here. And then I've also got a photo of one of the ornaments. So we do an ornament exchange in our group of friends. And I took a photo of the ornament that I got hanging on my tree. So we'll do kind of a Secret Santa style. So that's our Christmas tradition, hence all of the wrapping paper here on the table. Now, the thing about the photos, I've got a lot going on in this photo. We've got some lights and plants and people and stuff. This photo is relatively open, I would say. You've got the focal image here, which is the snowflake ornament, but then I've also got some empty space here with the pine boughs of the Christmas tree, which means that if I'm overlapping photos, it works nicely to overlap this photo on top of this one because it's okay if I cover up some of the pine boughs on there, but I wouldn't want to do the reverse and overlap and cover a person or a part of a person. So it's nice to have a little bit of variety in there with those as well. All right, so here's my page, and then I've got my photos, which I can put in place. And of course, I did a lot of fiddling to see where I wanted them to go. So I've got this one up here, kind of at the top, and then I've got this one here again, overlapping, like so. Then I can work in some of my journaling too. So for my journaling, I kept it pretty simple. I've got this little bit of information. So kind of the title of the page and then also who is in the photo. I've also left some room up here at the top for a die cut sentiment, and I've got some enamel dots on there too. When we're looking at journaling, and I love to include a lot of journaling on my pages, but sometimes you don't need to have too much. So in this case, I've got my information, which I've printed onto just regular copy paper. scrap paper. And I like to do this before I print it off onto my real paper, my nice cardstock, just to make sure that I've got enough space, I've got the spacing on here correctly, whatever the font is that I'm using, that I'm able to choose something that I like. This font is called My Underwood, so like the Underwood typewriter. It's a typewriter font, and I'm using a 16-point font for the larger words and then a 12-point font for the smaller words. Now, with my journaling on here, I've also got this beautiful frame, which creates a really nice border around the journaling. And the frame is coming from the Season of Joy ephemera pack. Let me show you this. And this is just the packaging. But you can see really nicely some of the large words that I've used on my page. There's some accent pieces, some smaller words, and then a lot of wonderful and very useful frames. So I have some rectangular frames, patterned and solid, and also some of these like little film strip frames, which are also really cool. And these are all of the elements that I'm using on my page today. In this set, you've got 79 die cut motifs, which is really nice. So you've got a lot to work with. And this is one of the frames too. So you can see there's a little bit of distressing, faux distressing printed around the edge. I love that. So again, then when I've got my piece kind of printed out and ready to go, I can play around with the positioning on this before I print it off onto my real cardstock. And the real cardstock that I use is the bright white from Arden. This is what I refer to as one of my desert island picks. So if I'm on a desert island and I can only choose, one kind of white cardstock, the bright white or the natural white, it's going to be hard to pick. Those would be my choices. It's a wonderful cardstock. It's smooth. It stamps beautifully. You can stamp on it really nicely. You can also run it through your computer printer to print out your journaling. Although, of course, you can use just the copier paper for this. I really do like to have something a little more substantial in weight. And that's one thing that I really like about this. So after I print it off on my copier paper, then I do it onto the real thing. And I'm ready to go with this. So I'm going to play with the positioning of this frame here. Of course, I've got some other frames that I could use as well. There's some with the stripe and the green, and then also the red would be really pretty. I'm going to go ahead and go with this solid red though. Although, let's see, on here you can see the green would also be really cool, that green stripe. So let's do this and we'll move my page out of the way. And what I'm going to do first is make sure I've got the positioning on here correctly. And then I'm going to add my die cut. And the cutting die is a stacked sentiment. It's from the Stacked Sentiment series, the Ho 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 die. I love it because it's just a fun and easy design to incorporate not only into your scrapbook pages, but also onto cards or gift tags. And when I'm shopping for dies, specifically around holidays that are holiday specific, I like to make sure that it's something that I can use not only for my scrapbook pages, but also for any other paper crafts that I'm going to do around that holiday, like card making or gift tags. So what I'll do with this is I'm going to take the die. You can see I've used it quite a lot. I've still got some double-sided or some low-tack tape stuck on here. And I've die cut this from another solid cardstock. And that is from an A4 size. This is almost 8.5 by 11 size of the blues. And I'm using the Amazon, which is this really pretty dark blue. And that dark blue just works beautifully with the colors in our background paper. So I've cut a really tiny piece of it and position the die on there. And then I use a low tack tape. You can see I've got a little remnant of it on there. You can also use a washi tape, that works too. Secure that in place, run it through your die cutting machine, and you will have a beautiful scripty piece that looks like this. I think this is just gorgeous. And so I'm going to glue this onto my cardstock, and I'm just going to leave my frame in place to make sure that I've got the positioning on here the way I want it to go. Because I know I want some of those enamel dots up at the top too. And then I can figure out that I've got enough space for this. Now, with really intricate, scripty designs, die cut designs, big question is, of course, how do you glue it in place? And I usually will use just a regular acrylic glue, a plain white glue, but I have an applicator with a little tip on here, and this does make it easier to get glue only where I want it to go. But restraint is key, especially when you're working with adhesive. You don't need to do a whole lot. Less is better because you definitely don't want it going all over the place. So I'm going to be really careful, and a precision tip also helps me make sure that I get just enough on here. Being very, very sparing here. Glue stick can also do the trick. I find that it's tricky to keep it in one place and not get it everywhere though. So I don't know if you can see that. I've got the bare minimum of adhesive on here. And then I'll just gently position it in place. Now the glue that I'm using does dry clear, so just in case anything kind of gets around the outside edges or goes into place I don't want it to go, then it won't be too visible. So I've got that in place and I'm ready to go. Now from here I can add on my frame. I can, oops, there we go, get back in place. I can add my frame, and I can use foam tape to add my frame on top, or I can just, since I've got my glue ready on hand, I can just add a little bit of this on here. And then pop this around. And then from here, all I need to do is let that adhesive dry, and I'll trim around the outside edge with my scissors. And then I've got my journaling in place and ready to go. I've also added on some of the enamel dots. I really love these. And these are for, I think, almost every collection that Arden has. They've got these enamel dots, which are color coordinated. You can see that the reds and the blues and the greens in here. And of course, a classic black and white makes it really easy to add these to your page or to your card or whatever paper craft you're using the papers for. It does add a really nice bit of dimension. Okay, now when I'm cutting this out, I'm going to just chop away the rest of this cardstock piece because of course I'm going to use this for something else. So I'll set that off to the side and then just trim around the outside using the frame as a guide for my journaling piece. So sometimes journaling can be really easy. It can be just kind of like the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, where, when, why. Detail journaling. You can also add more, as much as you want, of course. And what I would do is probably add more to the other side of a double-sided spread. So if you've got two facing pages, one can have minimal journaling and the other side can have certainly more. So here we go. I've got this ready to go. Let me grab my page again. And we can incorporate our journaling in here too. The other thing is when I'm creating a page, I will generally get all of my elements together before I really secure every single piece in place. So now I've got this here and I can add in some of my embellishments. So I've got 2 embellishments on here, again, with these frames. These are the square frames though. And underneath here, I've got some rub-ons. So the rub-ons are from the coordinating rub-on transfer set. You've got 2 sheets of 2 different designs in here. So you've got 4 sheets total. And as you can see, that big, beautiful poinsettia collage and some of the other elements. Here's that wreath again, and lots of words. So you've got a lot of different pieces to coordinate with your pattern papers, and they're super easy to use. Also included in your rub-ons will be an applicator, so a little craft stick or popsicle stick that you can use to transfer those designs. So I've got two of them, and let's talk about rub-ons here first of all. And I'll do a quick little demonstration for you if you are new to rub-ons, or maybe you haven't used them since you were a kid. That's also could also be. I'm a little bit addicted to them. I really, really do love how they add something extra to your page. So with this large rub-on here, what I decided to do is use just a portion of it. So I've taken one of the frames, and you can see it's a really nice little square design here. The frame measures 2¼ inches, and so the opening is about 1.5 inches. And you can play with the positioning. Of course, you can use this entire piece if you want to. You can also use just portions of it. And I wanted to capture that little cardinal in here. I think that's really beautiful. So all I need is this area here. So what I'm going to do is just chop this out of the background. So this is the only portion that I need. So I'm just going to kind of hold this in place and cut right into it. When I'm cutting into this, I am making sure that I'm cutting into both of the sheets. So there's a liner sheet underneath the artwork here. I'll show that to you. Let me get this all cut out. I'm going to leave all of the rest of this on the main sheet and leave these two together because, of course, I can use some of the other elements in here too. So if I pull this apart a little bit, you can see that there are two portions to it. So you do want to make sure to keep these together so that none of this artwork comes off in a place that you don't want it to come off. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is add this onto some white cardstock. So I'm going to be using that bright white again, and I'll take the rest of this sheet and kind of say, all right, that's about where we're going to go. And then remove the liner from this. Easier said than done. There we go. And I'm just going to position this right onto that cardstock, bright white cardstock. I'll smooth it down. There's a little bit of tack to it, so it's not going to go sliding around, and then I can transfer the design. Rachel, I see your comment on here. Let me read this while I'm doing my rub on. She says, I'm loving your papers, but struggling to get mixed media, inks, oxides, and sprays to show on them. They seem to sink in and disappear. Any hints? Do you mean specifically the Arden patterned papers? I have to say, I have not used oxides or sprays on them. I haven't tried that yet. The inks, did you notice with the inks, the inking that I did around the outside edge, that is still, let me show you this. Let me bring it back in. This is sinking in, but it's not disappearing. And it is a nice contrast, but it does blend in with our background color on here too. And that was a dye-based ink pad. So one of the hunky-dory ones. These are the dye-based inks that I usually use. You'd have to give me a minute or two to test out some other things. And I'm happy to do that. Has anybody else had any experience using any sprays or oxides on the Arden pattern papers? Or do you mean the cardstocks? Rachel, if you have any more detail on that, please pop it into the comment. I'd love to know because I'd love to see what is working well. Okay, so as I rub this on, I was just using a firm, even pressure around here. And then when I lift this up, ta-da, I've got my pretty little cardinal in there, just the right amount of space for my frame. So let me chop this out of the background and then I can add my frame on there. Yeah, using oxides, using sprays, that's always a fun way to add even some more color and design to your pages. So maybe that will be a future theme for us for another upcoming live. Thank you for the question too, by the way. I think I've got my weekend sorted. Get out all of my sprays and see what is working. Okay, so I've got some glue on the back of my frame, and I'm just going to place this down here like so. And then I'll let that dry before I cut it out. Now, one other thing I wanted to point out to you, and I mentioned layered rub-ons at the beginning. I'm going to bring the page up really close to the camera so that you can see this design right here. So here I've got another one of the cardinals. That's another little rub-on. And then the Christmas traditions rub-on is layered on top of the first rub-on. So I've applied the bird first and then the words on top. And what I like about this is that it gives you the option to create kind of your own collage, if you will. So you have a lot of little words on here and larger words as well. Now, the little words aren't little. So I thought to do this, I'll demonstrate this for you, but I'll use a bigger words so that it's a little bit easier to see on the camera. So here I've applied a rub-on already onto this white cardstock. And this is another portion of that beautiful poinsettia collage. And I've got the merry and bright words as a rub-on. And let's just apply this right on top so that you can see how this can work. I'm gonna play with the positioning here and smooth that down. So this has already been applied, and then I'm just going to layer another one on top. So if you were wondering if you can rub on top of a rub-on, the answer is yes. And I just like that it gives you even more design options there. Let's see if I've transferred this all in place. Pull this up slowly. And there we go. The first time I did that, I thought, oh no, if I rub on one, I might be pulling up the rub-on that's underneath. But as you can see, they both are on there really nicely. So that's what I've done for the other embellishment. So you can see I've got the December traditions on there overlapping. Alrighty, so I've got this piece ready to go. I can trim this one out, and then I can get to my page assembly and add in some additional die cut pieces. Trim around here. Again, you could use foam tape to adhere the frame to your background if you wanted to. That would work beautifully as well. Okay, let's scoot aside the rest of my things here, and then we can start assembling the page. So I'm going to start first with this photo, which I know that I can do some overlapping on top of this. So I'm going to go ahead and get this down in place. Again, I'll just tack this down with my glue stick. And this is going to go, let's make it the right way around, Sarah. I'm going to pop this right here. And then I've got this at a bit of an angle too. And then I'm going to angle in my photo, my people photo, and position that so that I've got this overlapping here just a little bit. Next, I've got my journaling, and I mentioned I wanted to add some of those enamel dots. So let's pop on a couple of dots there. I'm going to go with some of these lighter greens. And I like working with the rule of uneven numbers, so I'll add in 3 of these. The rule of uneven numbers. It's a guideline, but I like to keep it in mind when I'm adding embellishments or elements onto a page or onto a card. If you use, for example, 3, 5, or 7, it is somehow more pleasing to the human eye. What I've been told. Okay, so again, I'll overlap this and pop this in place too. Knowing that I'm going to position an embellishment right here in the center, maybe I'll scoot this over just a little bit. And then from here, I can also add in my two smaller frames. So I had this bird up here at the top. Let's put her here. Also, keeping in mind that I've got some words that are going to go across. And let's see, our December traditions. We'll cover it, part of our messy table here. Okay, now from here, and you'll notice with the rule of uneven numbers, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and I've got 4 squares, but then I've also got this rectangular piece. So it's breaking up a little bit of that linear effect that you can sometimes get when you're working with a square background, square photos, square journaling, and that sort of thing. Then from here, I can add in my Merry Christmas. And I've also got this poinsettia on here. Also got a little heart accent up here too. So let's look at those words. And I can also use some other words here. So I could do, for example, I've got happy holidays. I've got, let's see, good cheer. That could be another one on there. I think I'm going to go with the happy holidays. Oh no, maybe I'm going to do the good cheer. Let's keep this with the red theme. Amber also asks, if you change your mind about the position of a rub-on after you've stuck it, placed it down, but not rubbed it yet, can it be peeled up and moved elsewhere? You can sure try. And I have done it successfully in the past, and I have done it unsuccessfully in the past. So when you first put your rub-on down, as I mentioned, there is a little bit of tack to the rub-on. So it's meant to not go sliding around as you're applying it. If you are very, very quick and very gentle, you can get it off. But I find that you do want to think long and hard before you place it down. That would be my recommendation. I have pulled it up when it's a smaller, like a word or something with a large background piece. It doesn't tend to work too well. Okay, I've got my good up here. I'm going to get this over just a little bit more to overlap. And then I've got my word cheer, which I'm going to have going down here, making sure I'm not covering up any of my journaling. And then in the center, I've got a poinsettia. So I've got this beautiful poinsettia popped up here, which is kind of holding all of these elements together. So everything is overlapping in some respect. And then this is our nice little focal piece. And this is from the Laser Cuts collection. Hi, Thelma. Good morning to you. You're a retired art teacher. How wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. Thelma, you're 88. That's fantastic. It's nice to have you with us. We love having everybody of every age. My mother is 90. I don't know if she'd like me to be telling everybody this. She's 90. She is also a paper crafter as well. Okay, so let's have a look here with our laser cuts. I think I've just pulled one out unintentionally. Now the laser cuts, you've got a lot of elements in here. And again, everything is designed to coordinate. You've probably seen this cute little Santa a couple of times already. And of course, all of our foliage and sentiments in here too. Now these will pop out of the backing piece. So they come out really nicely. And what's nice about these two, got a lot going on here on my background. Hang on. Clear some space. What's nice about these two is that you can also layer them. So for example, with the poinsettia, I've got some red berries that I can pop out, and those can go right in the center there too. I've also got quite a few of the poinsettias, so I can do some layering with those if I wanted to create a dimensional effect. The other nice thing about the laser cuts, you'll notice as I open this up, here's one side, and here's the other side. So the great thing about this is if you have a piece that's, let's see if I've got something really specific here. For example, our little VW bug. You can have the car facing this way, or you can have it facing the other way. This is great for bits of foliage. It's also nice where you can see where the Santas were from a project that we did last month. But it's nice to have the options for things that can be facing one direction or another. Okay, so I've got my poinsettia and I am going to put some of these berries in here, just right on the top. And let's pop these down. And then I have to unbury my, my page here. I do end up with a lot of paper and lots of other things coming around here. And then from here, I'm going to position this. It looks like I did not leave enough room. Good thing about the glue stick, I can kind of shimmy this off to one side and then position this here and add it in the middle. I'm going to try not to cover up either Melissa or Stephanie. And position this like so. And then from here, of course, you can add in any additional embellishments if you wanted to add some, perhaps some more journaling down here at the bottom. I also have on my original page, I've got one of the heart die cut pieces just up here at the corner. You can see here I've planned things a little bit better and got that poinsettia in there. It's not covering up much of anything. A little bit with the ho ho ho, but I think that looks really nice anyway. So to create some nice depth and dimension, really allowing the pattern paper to create a nice soft frame around all of the elements of the page. Now, as I talked about double page spreads earlier, and if you've got minimal journaling on one side, you do have the option, of course, as you're doing a double page spread, meaning when you open your album or your scrapbook, you'll have something on the facing page. You can grab any of the papers from the paper pack, which is what I'm doing over to the side here, and have your facing page. So you can use two of the same pattern papers for your double page spread backgrounds, or you can just choose to have the coordinating designs, because of course this is going to be coordinating with the images on the background paper and also in our embellishments, whether they're the rub-ons or the laser cuts. So you've got some more options there. And then from here, you could add in more photos or some additional journaling. So again, lots of different ways that you can play with these various pattern papers and embellishments. I'm just going to check the comments here too before we wrap up. Amber, you're saying you're new to scrapbooking and worry about adding dimension in case it causes other pages to warp over time, especially if there are things stacked on top of a scrapbook. Yes, that's a great question, Amber. Because if you're adding what we used to call, I guess in the olden days, we called them lumpy pages, and people would put in lots of dimensional embellishments. And that's great. And the pages can look really amazing. You will find, though, after time, especially if you stack your albums one on top of the other, like on a bookshelf, of course, that will press into the other pages. So in that case, what you'll want to do, take care not to overload your album if you have really thick or dimensional pages, and store them upright. That can really help as well. In this case, with the foam tape, that's why I tend to keep things a little bit less dimensional, using only the foam tape. And I've got foam tape on the frame. I've got a bit under here, and just to keep things level so that all of my dimensional elements are on the same level. And then I've got my pieces that are glued straight down are on another level. But there's not a huge amount of dimension between them. In fact, let me show you. This is the foam tape that I use. And it's actually, you can see, it's not terribly thick. You can get really thick, wide foam tape, but I like to go with just the sort of standard. By the way, the chat isn't showing anyone else's comments. Okay, if anyone has said anything to me, I haven't replied. Okay, thanks for that, Amber. I know chat can sometimes be fussy. It shows when it wants to. So thank you for your comments, though. And thank you also to Susan, who has been joining in on the conversation, and Thelma as well. We just love to have folks coming back and exploring all of these wonderful things with us 2 times a month. So I'm going to turn my camera around so I can see everybody again. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had a great time. I hope you had a little bit of inspiration for some of those scrapbook pages featuring either your Christmas traditions or your winter traditions, holiday traditions. I hope you enjoyed looking at the Season of Joy collection. Oh, I love it so much, and it's just been a pleasure to work with. So we will be back again, not next Friday, but then the Friday after that. So on the 23rd, you may notice a pattern. We're here every other Friday, same time, same place. And we will be back with some more scrapbook pages, as well as some new news about some upcoming series and projects that we will have here at Arden. So there's a lot to explore. It will be a good year for us here, and we'll be having a lot of fun. Thanks to Fiona for being backstage. And again, if you have any comments, please continue to post those, because we do check, and I do check afterwards and read those. And if I haven't responded to something, then I will do so in the chat. And if you are joining us not live, but afterwards, we're very glad that you're here. And of course, you can join us whenever works for you. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.